Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and we're here in the town of Greenburgh to celebrate a plan that has now been put in force to take the building behind us that was for many years a WestHELP project and converted into 74 units of affordable senior rental housing. I'm joined here by a host of individuals that I want to reference. We'll be hearing in a few seconds from the town supervisor, Paul Feiner, and also from the developer, Mark Soja. But also with us are three members from the Westchester County Board of Legislators. I must point out this is the first legislature in the history of New York State that has more women than men as members of the board. So you're watching the people who are in charge. We have Vice Chair Alfreda Williams, who's with us here. She lives in the town of Greenburgh. Legislator Mary James Shimsky, who lives in Hastings, also within the town of Greenburgh. And Margaret Kunzia, who represents a portion of Greenburgh as a resident of Mount Pleasant. We also have with us members of the Greenburgh Town Board. I've seen Francis Sheehan is here, Kevin Morgan, Ken Jones. I didn't see Diana Jutner if Diana's here, but she may be joining us shortly. They are members of the board with Paul. We have Laverne Clark, who's a representative from the school board and a neighborhood association activist. Laverne, thank you for being with us.
Right
there we are. Our acting commissioner of planning, who is the guru of housing issues and has been a tremendous advocate and a tremendous person to execute these things, Norma Drummond, is with us. And we have the chair of the county planning board. He recently agreed to take on this as an appointment. He's the former WestHELP director of housing. He's a former boss of mine years ago when I worked in the city of Mount Vernon. And we're very happy to have a planner as head of our planning board, Richard Hyman. Richard? And we have our county attorney, John Nona, is with us here today. And we have a number of members of the county executive team here. Joe Scamato, Steve Bass, a former councilman here, Andrew Ferris, who's our chief of staff, Blanca Lopez, and Catherine Chaffee, our director of communications. Anybody who has not been introduced? Thank you.
I think I see a couple interns.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get a few more. I'm sure I missed somebody. But on the content of what we have here, this site was developed under the WestHELP program in 1990, and it was intended to be housing for the homeless on a piece of land that the county owns off from the Westchester Community College, and it has been closed in the current situation since 2011. There was, I gather, a 20-year arrangement for that, and then a repurposement of the property. This is part of a 6-acre parcel, and it's obviously right off of Knollwood Road. It's adjacent to WCC. This site will be leased to the developer. We're going to hear from Mark Soja in a second, for a 65-year term. That will predate my time on the planet, so we intend for this to be here for a goodly number of years. The lease that was submitted last October was only for 54 units of affordable housing, but our administration met with the town leaders, met with planning, met with the developer, discussed the different elements of it, and since we were looking at affordable senior housing, we came to agreement that a 74-unit property was workable within the footprint, would not unnecessarily impact the neighborhood, and would add an additional 20 units of affordable senior housing. And as we can attest to, senior housing is a tremendous open-ended need. The baby boom generation, of which I'm a proud member of, ready to sign up for Medicare before the year is over. That portion of the Westchester population is graying before us, and there's an additional need for this type of housing. So the additional 20 units to get to 74 units was a very positive site, and I want to thank Supervisor Feiner and the town board for their leadership and their ability to discuss this, and for the members of the neighborhood association who are active participants in it and were willing to have dialogue on this point. In this arrangement, the developer will pay $1.5 million. $900,000 of it goes to the county. $600,000 of it goes to the town on behalf of the county in exchange for the town relinquishing all rights to the site. This property will serve a wide mix of income levels, including from 40 to 60% of the area's median income, as well as the 80% to 90% of area median income. And that's an important differentiation. We have done affordable housing projects at 80% of median, but that is still a very high level of income, and we have a need in this county for people whose incomes are below that. So to have a mix here that can get in the range of 40 to 60 as well as 80 to 90 is a good way to look at these units and try to get a range of need assessed as we have this. We're being joined by our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins. Ken was a member of the Board of Legislators as most of these discussions were happening, and a very important person in the final resolution of our discussion. The project is many years in the making, but I think what we're trying to do in our new administration is work cooperatively with everybody, both sides of the aisle, work with municipal governments, and solve problems to try to get to closure. What we have today is closure and progress. We announced a couple of weeks ago the plan we have to renovate the Miller House over in the town of North Castle. Some of these are issues that have been bubbling for a number of years. They're legitimate points of view on either side of the issues, but we want to try to get to closure. We want to do it cooperatively and inclusively, and that's why we're where we are today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Town Supervisor Paul Feiner, and then we'll have a chance to talk with the developer, Mark Socia. First, Supervisor Feiner.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this press conference and for your efforts. When the WestHELP shelter was closed in about 8 years ago or whatever, I had a full head of hair, and there was so much aggravation over the past 8 years. Now I'm bald. But I just wanted to say better late than never, and I'm really thrilled, and all the members of the Greenburgh Town Board are really thrilled that the abandoned WestHELP homeless shelter will be converted into much-needed affordable senior citizen housing. I'd like to thank all the members of the Town Board, Francis Sheehan, Kevin Morgan, Ken Jones, and Diana Jutner for their hard work. Pushing for affordable senior housing, and also would like to acknowledge the advocacy of our members of the Board of Legislators who also pushed very hard for this over the years. Every single day I get at least one call from a senior citizen asking when they could move in, and that's been going on for I think 6 or 7 years already. In fact, there's a group of nuns. They told me that senior citizen nuns that they want to move in.
From Knollwood Road?
No, and they promised us a place in heaven if we could break the lottery.
I think that's illegal.
Yep. This is just one of what we hope will be other senior affordable housing developments in Greenburgh. The town board is currently working with the Greenburgh Housing Authority, and we plan to build over 80 new senior affordable apartments on Manhattan Avenue, and we've been making a lot of progress on that. I'd also like to commend the county executive for his good neighbor initiative, because I think one of the reasons we're here is because of the way the county executive handled this. The good neighbor policy worked, and I think it will always work, or will work most of the time if implemented in other communities. We did not force the local neighborhood association to support this proposal. We did not force the school district to support this. But what the county executive did is he provided the members of the town board and the developer with an opportunity to reach out to the school district, to reach out to the civic association, to talk to the neighbors. And during the past few months, we all did that. And what happened, instead of the neighborhood and school district opposing a project that frequently people would oppose, they came out in support of the application. So I think that this approach, making the community a partner in the decision-making processes of government, is basically the way to go. And I have found over the years that I've been supervisor, when the community is included as a partner in the process, they usually I'd say 99% of the time that I've been supervisor, they act very reasonable. So I think that this approach will result in much more affordable housing being built in Westchester because the community will take ownership. That's my own personal feel. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Paul. Next, Mark Soja, the person who has lived with this project over the last few months, years, and trying to pull it all together.
Thank you very much. It's true, almost 6 years ago, Paul, you issued the RFP for affordable housing at this property. It's been a long 6 years. The trials and tribulations along the way have got us to a place of property now at 74 units. This legislature and this county executive, we have to thank them because they took the steps to make us recognize the need for more additional senior housing, to make sure we got 20 more families who have an affordable place to live, be proud to call home, that will leave them close to their friends, family, and their supportive network. And that's important as people age in place to have access to where they've spent the most of their life. So we're going to convert this property into 74 units of affordable senior housing. There's going to be 60 one-bedroom apartments, 8 two-bedrooms, and 6 studio apartments. As County Executive Latimer indicated, we'll have a wide span of affordability. Rents will be as low as $750 per apartment. So it's going to be a very affordable community. I want to just end by thanking the County Executive, George Latimer, and the County legislators, Mary Jane Simsky, Mark Kunzio, Alfreda Williams. Thank you so much for really taking the charge as things change, helping us get to a place where we're developing 74 units of affordable senior housing. Thank you all very much.
We owe a debt of gratitude to Mark and his professional team. We can have all of the good intentions that we want as elected officials, but it takes somebody who understands the financing, the construction, and all the other elements that take an idea and turn it into actual housing. And so, Mark, that's your professional skill that really has been the difference in this happening in this announcement today. We have in the county government these 4 months that I've been county executive, a working relationship out of mutual respect with the Board of Legislators and the executive branch. We may not agree on everything, but that's human nature. But we've had individuals in the Board of Legislators who've really shown tremendous leadership, and as a separate and distinct branch of government, they've stepped up and individually and collectively. So I'd like to give each of them an opportunity to say a few words if they'd like. I guess I'll go with Alfreda Williams, but in whatever order, ladies, you'd like to share a few thoughts, please feel free.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to say a lot, but I certainly am delighted that we finally reached the point where we can look forward to putting a shovel in the ground and getting some sorely needed senior housing in the town of additional senior housing in the town of Greenburgh. So I want to thank my colleagues who worked so well and so cooperatively on this, and I want to thank Mark for always trying to do the right thing, and I want to thank the community, and thank you for being here today for helping to make this possible, and of course Paul and the town council members. Thank you all. Let's move forward and let's get a shovel in the ground.
It's been 7 years since this site was, close to 7 years since this site was originally closed by the former county executive. There were plenty of empty promises along the way, but everyone kind of suspected that the goal was simply to keep it closed indefinitely and let no one live here. And I don't often talk in religious terms when I talk as a government official, but in the tradition I grew up in, letting these buildings rot when people desperately needed homes was a mortal sin. A mortal sin. This was so wrong. And I am glad that our new county executive decided to select this as one of the policy areas that he has chosen to reverse early on in his term, and we will get people living here soon. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting the lease introduced in the Board of Legislators so we could do our due diligence and the construction can proceed apace. Before I turn the microphone over to Margaret, I just want to say that it was essentially over 6 years of just banging our heads against the wall just hoping against hope that something would work. And through that time, Elfrida Williams and I think, forged a wonderful partnership where we decided we were not going to let this place die. And we were going to make sure that people who needed housing were going to get to live here one day. And a few years ago, with the addition of our third musketeer in the project, Margaret Kunzio, we were able to get it done together with the new county executive. And we were talking to Laverne before, and we were talking about how we never thought we were going to see the day, but we have. And as I said, I'm looking forward to a ribbon cutting here. Thank you.
Even though I'm the newest musketeer on the board with this, growing up in Westchester, I remember this when it was WestHELP, and seeing this as an abandoned building really broke my heart, because senior housing is a need. But as an educator, what I pride myself in is that with this housing, there will be no impact on the Valhalla Central School District. This is for seniors. And that was very important, working with Laverne Clark, who's been on the board for 20 some odd years and has seen this through, that it was important to make sure that we kept the costs down, because as we know, 60% of our property taxes are school-based taxes. So it was important, and I want to thank my colleagues, the county executive. It's amazing what happens when you get people in a room and you sit down and you have a conversation. And I also want to thank the developer, Mark Soja. He sat down with the neighborhood association. We had many meetings with them. And again, communication is the key in working together to bring positive and great things to Westchester. So I look forward to the ribbon cutting here. Thank you.
So open it up to any questions on this. I'm going to ask Norma Drummond to come by a little bit closer. We may get a question that has some substance to it, and of course I'm not going to be able to answer it. So I'm going to have to turn to you or to Mark. So in any event, any questions? David?
Two questions. One, are they going to take down the barbed wire
Yes.
around the site?
Yes, I haven't even asked anybody. I don't like barbed. I see barbed wire. I don't see a need for it out.
Okay. And the
I guess
other
we'll have to
question
pay
is
for it.
why they took down Andy O'Rourke and Tony Veteran's name off the side of the building.
That's a good question. I don't know that. Do we know?
I don't know. I didn't take it down.
We'll check into it, David, and get back to you. Certainly, I think that both Andy O'Rourke and Tony Veteran need to be recognized for their service. I got to know both of them during their day, and if this is one of the proper places to recognize them, then we'll maintain it. If not, we'll certainly work with the town, because Tony Veteran was a longtime town supervisor, and we'll figure out how to keep both of their names prominently remembered. Let me just go and I'll come back to you. Peter.
Yesterday, in doing the Playland report, you said this is to inform the public. Today, Mr. Feiner talked about involving the public. Are we seeing a shift in attitudes here in Westchester?
Well, I can only speak for the 4+ months that I've had the chance to be county executive. And, folks know that before I came into this position, I held a lot of legislative positions. And as a legislator, you work in a collegial fashion. No one legislator has all the authority to just point and direct, even serving as chair of a legislature, a speaker of a legislature. So my natural tendency is to want to include people as part of a decision process. And this particular issue, the Miller House from a couple of weeks ago, what we've yet to do in terms of analyzing Playland, because really we're beginning that rediscussion of the arrangements at Playland, all of those things are meant to be inclusive. And I think Paul mentioned this. I've traveled around to the different local governments to talk about a good neighbor policy, the way I've referred to the legislature. We've got to get away, in my judgment, from the era of the individual politician who is the leader, who has all the vision. The vision is we. It's when we work and discuss and collegially work through things. And I think we're finding that is the best way to make decisions. We've got to look beyond the two-party system and understand that people who are involved in decision-making, whatever their point of view and perspective, have to be listened to, and those ideas have to be incorporated. And so far, there's other issues ahead of us, but an issue like this was resolved, as Paul said, because we were able to talk across those lines and not try to be secretive. And frankly, give credit to all the people necessary. Mark's vision, the town board, the county legislature, there's a combination of things that made today happen. And if we accomplish anything good, it's going to come out of a combination of us working together. Paul, we'll go back go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
What is the plan for the administration building?
Right now, the administration building we're hoping will provide services to seniors that are here. So initially in the space, we're going to have a computer learning center, an exercise room, facility in there, and then we hope to bring in additional services that will help the seniors as they age in place.
Another question for the developer. Does this set a tone to make senior housing perhaps more of a business objective, looking at it from a developer's standpoint?
Well, I think affordable housing, including senior housing, is a business, but it's also mission-driven as well. It's important to give lower-income families, including seniors, a place to live that they're proud to call home. And I think that's what our industry is.
Let me just add one element to that too, Peter. I mean, we've gone through a recent experience when the public policy discussion of affordable housing was limited to satisfying a lawsuit building 750 units. Actually, more was built than the 750, but viewing it through the prism of we have to do this because we're required to do this. And as I said in my State of the County message, our vision has to be broader than that. There's a need out there, and as I alluded to it, and we all know it, there's a graying that's going on in Westchester County, but there's also need at other levels of economics and other levels of demographics. This particular site, because of what it is and the circumstances, work well for senior housing. We need to do more senior housing. We need to do more family housing. We need to do it at a variety of different ranges. We need to do it when there's these many units, where there are these many units. Whatever it is, we need to do more because that's what the demographics point to. And when we're doing projects that are not necessarily senior housing, then the people who live in those houses with families, that's part of our workforce. And they need to find an opportunity to live in this county. So I think this as one example of us taking a practical-minded approach to these things. These things don't happen without a developer vision, without the knowledge and the insight of putting together the construction and the financing piece, but it also takes political will. And those of us who are elected officials, we have to be able to go back to the people that we represent and explain why this is important, why we have a role to play within the society for helping to spur affordable housing. And it may be through an incentive that we give, it may be through a piece of land, but whatever that is, there's this need to be dealt with if we want Westchester to be the diverse county that it is. Any other questions? You're welcome to talk to any of these individuals individually if you'd like, as you see fit. Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Mark?